Hello and welcome to the April property market update from AR Property Partners. I'm here as usual with my colleague Robert.
Hello there.
And today we've got some fascinating and interesting statistics about the local Oxfordshire property market and some shocking news from nationwide.
Yes, absolutely.
Talk to us about inflation to kick us off.
Yes, so as you may or may not have heard, UK inflation fell to 3.4% in February, which is significantly lower than forecasted, and a really positive outlier for where things could go in sort of the economy and the general housing market.
I think with the inflation being a surprise, that's actually really positive for the mortgage markets and everything else. And the head of the Bank of England has actually given some really significant indicators that interest rates are going to be dropped. Of course, it has to go to vote and everything else, so there's no guarantees, but interest rates are on their way down. Now, Robert, talk to us about swap rates, because of course that's been baked into mortgage rates at the moment. Talk to us about swap rates.
So the swap rates have actually for a little while now been significantly lower than the Bank of England base rate. So the mortgage swap rates are what the lenders use in order to formulate how much they're going to charge their customers.
Yeah, because they can have a fixed rate under 4%.
Exactly.
And the Bank of England base rate is at 5.25. How do they do that? Well, the swap rate is down at like 3.5 or something, so they can make their money that way.
So the mortgage swap rates have at the moment been tracking below the base rate. They're probably going to be tracking lower than that now that we know where inflation is, and from what Bank of England said about where the base rate could go. I mean, the Mortgage Works are a large firm. Following the announcement of the lower inflation, they've already reduced their rates by 0.4%. So that would have been a clear indicator from the swap rates that they're probably going to be coming down. So you can reduce your interest rates,
mortgage products.
So,
and actually, mortgages sub 4% are quite ubiquitous now. So talk to a good mortgage broker, you'll find good products out there. Of course, unless you're a first-time buyer with a 90% mortgage or a buy-to-let or anything like limited company buy-to-let. Although I believe you can get one at 5% now, if I'm not mistaken. But again, this isn't mortgage advice.
No.
So let's talk about housing in Oxfordshire.
Yes, yeah. So the big sort of shocking news coming out of Nationwide is that there has been a fall in house prices. Not by a lot.
No.
0.2%. So it's a nominal figure. We've been seeing small amounts of growth over the past 5 or 6 months. If you go back on all of our things, you would have heard us say house prices increasing.
Yeah.
Now we've had a minimal drop in March.
Yeah.
But again, that is nationally. I would say, and Alice, you may agree with me here, that locally, I don't know whether we've seen.
No, there's no drop at all locally. Well, certainly not for me. I'm mainly Botley based and Oxford. That seems to be stronger than ever. It's mental. It's a really good market. I would say locally it's more like probably 0.1 up.
But again, we've got to remember that from what sort of Nationwide will do, it's a bit of a lag indicator. It's not necessarily a lead indicator. So that would be for things a couple of months ago. But Rightmove, who are a lead indicator, have indicated that asking prices are 1.5% higher.
Which is interesting
because in February. So
normally it's 1% in March. So the long-term average is 1% growth in March. And although this is the April thing, it's because we've got the data of March now. So you could look at that. The headline, if we were a headline grabbing thing, would be house prices up 50%. So that's ridiculous. But that's what So they have increased 50% on their long-term average from 1 to 1.5%. But there you go. So interesting stats there. Sales volumes are interesting as well, because nationwide there's definitely significantly more transactional energy in the market. Nationwide Halifax, they're reporting 13% growth in activity. Locally in Oxfordshire it's 20%, and I would hazard that's not just for AR Property Partners, that is for the whole of Oxfordshire, because we've got access to all the data. So 20% growth. That's following a pretty dismal year in 2023 in terms of transactional volumes. So we saw 37.5% reduction in transactional volume in 2023, and therefore a 20% growth is actually a return to the mean, because 21 and 22 were ballistic and were just not sustainable.
We're not going to
a return to normality.
Quote unquote. One thing that we're definitely seeing is significantly fewer news stories coming out about negative housing market. That sort of filled the news channels a lot last year. The overall market sentiment amongst a lot of property professionals, surveyors, agents, property partners, is that the market has got a very, very good future moving forward. That's
strong. And there are three key drivers of the housing market. Those are the availability of finance, and banks are liquid, they are desperate to lend us money. The market, the economy, which is strong enough, it's okay. And then there is market sentiment, which is the big driver. And we've got the media behind the housing market at the moment. There seems to be a bit of positivity. So that all bodes extremely well.
So Alison, talk to us a little bit about rental trends. Where are we with
rental trends? So the growth, so the supply and demand imbalance still remains, and it's slightly ridiculous. Of course, there's been a big exit of amateur buy-to-let landlords. The government have been trying to move into professional landlords only. So they've made so many punitive measures that amateur landlords are leaving. So the supply and demand issue is still there, but it's beginning to ease a little bit. And we've seen, last couple of years, we were seeing sort of 15% growth a year. That's down to 7% year on year, 7.6% year on year as an increase. It's still an increase, and it's still over wage inflation. So it's still getting more painful to rent a property. And I think that cycles back into the housing market, because actually it's becoming more affordable to buy a property. So if someone's settled in an area, then they're choosing to buy, because they're like, why am I paying this much rent? It's mental. So that is, I think positive that the rate of growth is slowed, but it's still painful for people.
And would you say, Alistair, that the reason why a lot of amateur buy-to-let landlords have been leaving is regarding this renters reform bill?
Yes, absolutely.
Where are we with that?
So, funny you should say that. It's actually a year pretty much to the day since they introduced the Renters Reform Bill and scared a hell of a lot of landlords with news of, no-fault evictions being banned, among other things. So Michael Gove has actually said he will be returning the bill to Parliament this month, which is exciting if you're a geek, a property geek. But there's been a leaked letter that has highlighted a few changes that are significant. One of them was that you could rent a property, and the day you took it, you could give notice as a tenant, which was just untenable for landlords who would be paying to let the property, and then they'd have notice served on them the day it's taken. But also, more importantly, I could go and rent a property in a nice touristy hotspot on the 1st of July, give them notice, stay there July and August, have a great time in the South Coast, and then leave at the end of August. So they're going to change that. So the tenant will need to be there for a minimum of 6 months before the notice would be servable. And then if they're in a contract fixed term, then it would be a 2-month notice. And if they're on a statutory periodic, then it would be a 1-month notice. The other change, which is exciting, is a delay, a significant, maybe in permanent delay, to the abolition of Section 21 notices, which is what's called a no-fault eviction. So if you, as the landlord, as the owner of the property, would like to get your home back, previously you would serve, or currently, you would serve a Section 21 notice, which is a no-fault eviction, just, hey, thanks, I'd like to have my house back, all the best. And they were proposing in the initial Renters Reform Bill to abolish that and say you can't do that, you can only give notice if there's a breach of tenancy, or if you want to sell the property or move into the property yourself. Now, that hasn't been withdrawn, like pulled out, but what they've said is we will only implement that once the courts are in a position where they'll be able to handle the significant increase in possession order requests. And I think that's probably a stealth way of saying it will never do it, but they're kind of they can't say that because we're building up to an election.
Exactly. And that's the thing with the Renters Reform Bill. We are having an election this year. How far this actually makes it over the course of the next 6 months, 6, 7, 8 months, however long it's going to be until we have the election, is anyone's guess whether they're going to try and push this through beforehand.
They have jostling for power to do first.
Well, exactly. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for bearing with us with the April update. We'll be back in May for the May market update. Yes, thank you so much for tuning in.
Absolutely, and as always, just leave us a message or reach out to us if you have any questions or need any property information. All the best.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.